Everybody, this is Simon Dixon, and welcome to episode 59 of Bank to the Future Live. We've been doing a lot of investor updates and having special guests and inviting people from the board members of our portfolio companies to come on and share their thoughts. And we've been doing lots of private investor interviews. If you're an investor in some of the different companies on our platform, maybe Kraken, we had the CEO of Kraken, Jesse. We had the Bitfinex CTO, and we've had various other people from the industry and our portfolio companies. So today we wanted to get back to where we're at with the Bank to the Future products, the Bank to the Future token. And so I've invited Adam Vaziri, the new member of the board that joined our team as a result of the Diacall merger. And strategic investment. And we've also got Famida here from Investor Relations, who's on the front line with all of your questions and the Investor Relations team. So this is going to be very much an interactive session. I've got a couple of slides, and the goal was that we would just simply go through some of the products and help you understand what we're going to be doing at Bank to the Future. So maybe you're a shareholder in Bank to the Future. Maybe you're a token holder in the Bank to the Future token, or maybe you're just one of our investors that has a portfolio on Bank to the Future. So we can help you understand what to expect. The more interaction you give us, the more we can guide this in the direction that you want it to go. But we've got 1 hour allocated to go through as many of your questions, go through the products, and help you understand our strategic thinking and where we're taking it next. I do also want to say that we are ultra excited because this lockdown period has really made us question a lot of the assumptions and a lot of the things that we were working on at Bank to the Future. And, you know, it's one of the very famous economists, Schumpeter, always said that there's a creative destruction in a recession whereby it destroys much of the inefficiencies in an economy and makes you really focus down on the efficient parts of an economy. And we've been putting into practice a lot of that at Bank to the Future over the last few months, and really looking at what areas that we might have been exploring strategically that may not really fit into the whole Pareto principle. 80% of your results come from 20% of your actions. Hopefully I got that the right way around. But we've been really putting into practice that and looking at what is the product that our investors want the most. And so what we're going to do is we'll go through each of the products that we would have presented before and give you really an update. So Adam will give his commentary. He comes from it from a slightly different angle to me. And Famida can also pick out any of your questions or bring her input because she is very much on the front line of what you as investors are requesting. And so let's see where we take this. I'm gonna do a bit of a screen share. Hopefully this works. And I'll pull up an old slide deck where I was going through some of the products, which seems like a lifetime ago when we were on a roadshow in US prior to the lockdown period. Can everyone see can you let us know if you can see that? For me, does it all look good? Can you see a screen right now?
Yeah, that looks good to me. Yep.
Okay. So we were given a presentation on a decade in crypto securities. And one of the things that we were going around the US for was really pitching for feedback on where the security token market is. Because in 2019, we made several strategic investments, acquisitions. One of those was with the Diacall team, which is a UK regulated entity. And we have successfully, brought the strategic parts of Diacall and the strategic parts of Bank to the Future. And we've been working together as a team, and they're making some additional license applications and from the UK side. We also made a strategic investment in the US broker-dealer BMI Capital, and we're happy to say that we did our first few deals together. So obviously, investing volume is down from what it was before, but we pulled in, 1.4 million into an SPV to invest into layer one on top of the direct investments that was made into the layer one deal. And we did a small round for Robinhood. And we're currently getting ready to push more deals on our secondary market after consulting with many of the companies and investors in terms of what are the strategic changes that we need to make to bring it out of beta. So also we acquired the altcoin.io technology in order to try and launch a security token exchange, and we'll give you an update on all those things. So let's go straight into some of the products that we're thinking about at Bank to the Future. So the bread and butter at Bank to the Future is obviously our primary markets. Something you might not know, but we're actually the longest standing company in crypto. So when we were doing the roadshow, we were celebrating a decade in crypto securities. But we actually realized that prior to us starting, there was only a couple of companies in crypto. One was Mt. Gox. We all know what happened to that. Another was, God, I've forgotten the name of the company now. BitInstant, which was later shut down. And around about shortly after we launched were companies like a few years later were like BitPay and blockchain.info it was, now blockchain.com, and Coinbase. And that makes us, Bank to the Future, the longest standing company in crypto. So that's one of the key assets that we realize that we have. And, over the years, because we were supporting many of the companies before venture capitalists were investing in the industry, we hold a lot of equity in many different companies through our SPV structures, thanks to our community of investors. With external investments and SPV investments, we've facilitated $850 million almost now of funding rounds, and a few more deals, and we'll be up to closing and approaching that $1 billion mark, which will be a really big milestone for us. We're grateful for the 90,000 investors that have registered in order to get us through to that milestone. But what we really realized is that it's still a niche. Investing in equity of private companies is a niche product, is a niche that we've served, that we've dominated, that we've had more success than anyone else in the industry in, but it's still a niche. And so that was really, realization one. Sorry if it took us 10 years to get there, but that was our first, realization. But what does it achieve for us as an organization? Well, firstly, it's brought us more trust in the industry as the longest standing company in crypto. And two, it's given us exposure to the entire industry through the fact that we have all of these equity investments. Some have matured to become unicorns. Others are, sitting in the middle and still looking for their growth. And some of them have gone bust, obviously, as part of that. But we now have complete exposure to the industry. And that's still going to be a very important focus for us, because the more equity we get into our SPV structures, the more investors we give exposure to the industry, then the more of these key assets that we have as an organization, and we get to bring to our investors. But the realization one is that it's taken us 10 years to get there, but we have dominated that niche, and we now have lots of processes of how to fire up companies that can invest special SPVs. We have lots of the equity in companies, and whenever a company's doing a funding round that might want some top up, then we're able to bring in the fact that we've worked with so many other companies in the industry in order to do that. We've always wanted to focus on quality rather than quantity. So we never saw ourselves as a platform that was trying to get 10, 15, 20, 30 deals all at the same time. We just wanted to service a few deals, find the deals, get that mix right between more established companies and more early stage companies, and try and get that balance right. So that's really the primary markets. We'll continue to do that. Our goal is really to bring to you, 1 or 2 quality deals every month. We're working with about 6 companies onto contract right now, and we look forward to continuing to bring those to you. So Ad, I don't know if you wanted to, before I go to the next product, I don't know if you wanted to add anything on the primary markets, Adam.
Yeah, I mean, on the primary markets, being a dominant player means that we were able to amass a certain amount of assets in terms of the companies, the leaders in the markets, the ones that the early starters, and seeing them grow and seeing those assets essentially within the structure that is Bank to the Future, be contained within that structure, which means as a company, it means we're in this very unique position where other maybe platforms may have done something similar, but they just weren't there at the beginning to amass all of those assets. And the result is it puts Bank to the Future in a very unique position in the market because it has all of these assets under one umbrella. That's why this primary market, if you will, is not about just a platform raising funding, but it's about how long you do that and how long you do it within one particular segment, and that you can become a dominant player as a result of having so many companies having participated. So that prepares the foundation for what is the next level, what are the next products of Bank to the Future.
Yeah, and gives us that right mix between regulatory compliance, very tricky area, securities laws. Many companies are trying to get into that with the security token market right now. And we know the types of challenges that we have to face, and we had to trailblaze over the last 10 years to do securities well and get that right mix between innovation and regulatory compliance. Tricky area. But in the end, we've got these structures. We've got the US compliance via our broker-dealer partner within the group. We've got the UK compliance, and we've got the Cayman Islands securities business. But it's always going to be a niche because securities laws, unless you're going to be taking these companies public, then it's never going to have the mass appeal of being able to bring equity opportunities to the masses. And most regulators around the world believe that these opportunities are inappropriate for the masses, and therefore it's always going to be a niche area.
I think another just interesting point is for anyone that wants to really come into crypto at this point, and they want a snapshot of the whole industry, there's not really one place that has everything under one hood. And that, when we're talking about this kind of unique position of having been there from the beginning, having worked with the companies to bring them into Bank to the Future, for newcomers into the industry, if they want to catch up and they want a snapshot of 10 years of crypto, Bank to the Future has all of that history, and it's all under one hood. And so that's very appealing for people that are looking, if you want, for a safe haven, somewhere where they can learn about crypto, somewhere where they can see what the history of crypto is, and the players that have actually been so important to building this industry.
Yeah. And so, really over that decade, because securities come with such tight requirements on marketing, the world has heard of many of our portfolio companies, the Krakens, the Coinbases, the blockchain.coms of the world, because they don't have the same restrictions as we do in terms of marketing and having to filter through your clients and having to make our clients go through hoops that we would much rather them not go through, but that's the game that you have to play in the securities market. So, that brings us to, is that ever going to be, what does Bank to the Future need to do to be a mass appeal product? And that's really the conversations we've been having. The second area is the secondary market. So we scrutinized our secondary market. Volume is really low. We've got some of the amazing deals. But what can we do in order to increase the ability for people to take advantage of the fact that they can now, essentially in the current market, invest in the most valuable companies in crypto, often at a deep discount to their valuations that they're currently getting with venture capitalists at the moment. And the reason that the reason that private companies don't trade on markets is simply because private equity is such a patient product that when you give investors liquidity, they often have to sell not because there's anything wrong with the company, but just simply because their circumstance might change. They might get impatient. They might want to try and get some liquidity. So the question that we had at Bank to the Future is, how can we create a market where those that want to sell can sell, but it doesn't ruin the share price of the companies that are often not at this public stage. They're not at that stage whereby there's lots and lots of volumes connected to lots and lots of brokers through major national exchanges that public companies have. And they have this ginormous investor relations overhead because they have to act, because they are public companies to meet the regulatory requirements. What can we do for private companies? And what we realized is that the first thing is many people create a race to the bottom. So when we were in beta, we've noticed that some of the companies just had a race to the bottom, nothing to do with the performance of the company because it had zero relation to it. It was all because investors just wanted some liquidity for personal reasons. So what that was is we noticed that people were just racing down the price simply because they needed some liquidity and they were trying to compete with each other in an illiquid market. And then that makes it a bit concerning for the companies because they're trying to go out and raise some venture capital. And there's this market on Bank to the Future where their price is below that price. And that can actually have an hindrance to the growth of the company simply because, it's a low liquid market. And we've seen that with the security token market, where essentially all the security tokens that have been released to date, or the majority of them, have been a race to the bottom because of low liquidity. So a couple of things that we've decided that we're going to do is introduce a price floor whereby an order cannot be placed below the value of the last funding round. So that means that what we found is when people want to come along and buy, they're not necessarily hunting for bargains. When people want to buy, they've decided that they want to pay the fair price, which is the price that the last venture capitalist paid or the last professional investor. And so by introducing the price floor, we don't think it will affect people that want to buy, but it will mean that the price is actually protected and there's not this race to the bottom just because a few people want liquidity on a low volume number of shares. So that's really, the protecting the price at the price of the last funding round serves both of our investors and both the companies that need to protect those funding rounds in order to the price of the funding round to grow the companies. But secondly, where are we going to find the buy volume in a niche? And that really brings us up to our next innovation around, how we can create products around people that just want to build a diversified portfolio in the entire industry. Well, we can provide that, but they need a more easy user experience and they need a reason to do that and a package of products that make that easy. So that's one of the second things that we've been thinking about. The other thing that we've been thinking about is through some of our partnerships, like when we did the Kraken funding round, one of the deliverables that the investors that invested in Kraken was a promise from the Kraken team that eventually they'll be able to use those shares as collateral in order to trade on an exchange. Now that makes a really interesting product. So we've been working with, we did an interview with Jesse, the CEO of Kraken, and we're under NDA, so we can't really reveal details. But it created a really interesting opportunity to experiment with how the Kraken shareholders can use those shares as collateral to trade on the Kraken platform and engine, which gives something that a speculator can do stuff with their shares while they're waiting for maturity. And this really creates a really interesting dynamic by allowing people to do stuff with their shares like they do in the traditional public market by using them as collateral, as well as creating products which drive more buy volume, as well as protecting the share price. And so those are the things that we're working on before we come out of beta. Adam, I don't know, like, I know we can't reveal too much, but maybe you wanted to comment on some of those things that we're thinking about with this beta secondary market.
Yeah, I mean, any secondary market for shares is always, in private shares, is always going to be a bit tricky because of precisely this issue of low liquidity somehow being a reflection of value. That's not the case. There's not enough volume in there to be able to generate a fair price. Also, sometimes some of these businesses are not generating enough profits to be able to determine, in traditional ways of how they should be valued. So I think really what's important with this product as a secondary market is about aligning our interests as Bank to the Future with our clients, who are the primary market issuers, with their opportunity of them embracing new shareholders through the secondary market, and that they view that to be a positive sign, not something that they should be concerned about or worry about, or could cause a detriment for them if they move forwards with further funding rounds. So it's first that alignment, and making sure that they realize, yeah, okay, you can raise money on Bank to the Future, but then afterwards, this secondary market is something that you should embrace, because it will invite more people to love what you're doing and follow you in where you're going. And I think that's very much about that. It's very much about people wanting to follow products in crypto. Like Kraken, there's such a huge following of people that just love that product and love Bitfinex and other products in the crypto sphere. And to have that opportunity to be able to follow and own is a wonderful thing. And so, the secondary market is just a way of making that happen. But we need to be aligned with our clients in that respect in order to be able to do more with them. If we can say to them, let's do the secondary market, they're happy about it, then we can do more with them. More means let's look at other products such as collateral shares used for unlocking other assets that they could use for trading purposes, etc. So it's very much about getting that alignment right so that we can do more with our clients and that they want to work with us more, not only on primary offerings, secondary offerings, and more.
Yeah, so I mean, the biggest, most successful investments on our platform have been crypto exchanges. They make money when the market crashes. They make money when the market goes up. And we've got a diversified, client base, with Bitso being the largest exchange in Mexico, with Uno Coin putting in a bit of a turnaround after the situation in India with crypto being turned around. And then some of the major US players like Kraken, and then the offshore players like Bitfinex, and then some of the more other more established companies. But the point is that people want exposure, and so we can repackage those products, put them together, align it, and when people do want to buy, it's not necessarily that they're looking for a deep discounted price. They're just looking for the right price. So that's how we're thinking about that. And once we've released those enhancements, we will then have the opportunity to put most of the companies that are on a path to success. We obviously don't want to put the obvious failures or the ones that haven't really proven themselves to be able to get clients yet. We don't want to put them on the secondary market as a way of just dumping a bad investment. We want to make sure that we're only getting the companies that have proven that they can get clients and they're on some kind of path and demonstration to growth. Famida, I noticed you jumped in. Have you got something?
Thank you. So I wasn't sure whether you were seeing me because you're sharing the screen right now. But yeah, so there are some questions around this secondary market. I don't know whether you got more to say on this, but just a good question from GM London. I guess clarification around this would be good. Is the plan to allow investors of private companies to sell the shares they own through the BF platform, even if the company wasn't originally funded through BF?
Yeah, I mean, so if anyone wants us, we're in a unique position whereby, we have access to many share offerings that might not necessarily want to list on our primary market. So if someone, we're in a unique position whereby if we can make our secondary market liquid, then we can gain access to many secondary shares. We've had some really great opportunities, and we've got some more opportunities to accumulate shares, put them on our secondary market. And we think it wouldn't be too difficult if we can increase liquidity to get almost every major company in the industry in one of our SPVs, and then make a market in that. So that's a very unique thing that we're able to achieve. But obviously, it's a beta product, and I'm really glad we kept it in beta for this amount of time, because now I think we know the market, that we know the product that the market is going to want. So yeah, the idea is that we want every single major company in crypto on our secondary market. So eventually someone can come along and press a button and say, right, I want to put $100,000 in the industry, click a button, and they've got every company in the industry that's getting anywhere with a click, once they've been through our verification and certification process. That's where we want to go. That's the end result. And whether they've been on our primary market or not, we want to have them on our secondary market.
Yeah. So another question here. Do you think the price floor will improve with volume?
I think the price floor is not going to improve volume, but it means that we're not going to have this race to the bottom. It means that we can align ourselves with the companies in order to get more deals on there. In order to increase volume, we need to, one, make equity more useful, which is why we're exploring this, how people can do stuff with their shares. And secondly, create a really easy way for people just investing in the industry with a few clicks of a button. And then we need to engage in, again, the restrictions are always in the marketing, because we're a securities business. You can't market aggressively like a cryptocurrency exchange. So therefore, that brings us to our next point, which is we need a product for the masses. And therefore that can drive more people and more attention to the products and upgrade people to what we consider, the primary market and secondary market is a niche product, but what is going to be our product for the masses? And that's really what we've been thinking about a lot.
Cool. Just a final note from the same person. I actually can't pronounce their name. I will ask in the live chat. Mm-hmm. But yeah, their comment here is interesting. Protecting the share price seems like a novel approach to building a strong secondary market.
Awesome. Thanks for the feedback. If you've got more feedback, do let us know. And that really helps us shape these products. We've made a real shift to transparency. I hope you've seen that. We look for your involvement. So we've got the primary markets, we've covered the secondary markets. Now we got the BnkToTheFuture token. The BnkToTheFuture token is, what we've realized is that, many people are like, well, you need to please find more uses for the BnkToTheFuture token. Well, we've created 3 uses of how we can utilize the BnkToTheFuture token, and they are utilized by our investors. So when people go through the painful process that we need to make as easy as possible, but we still need to comply with regulations globally in global securities laws and anti-money laundering laws, we can reward people with tokens for going through that not so pleasant process that we all have to go through. And that's working. That's one use of the token. The other use of the token that we created was priority access to deals. For those that actually want priority access to deals, so when we were in a bull market and something like Telegram would sell out really quickly, or RSK would sell out really quickly, then that primary market offering, and we did deals like Securitize, for example, that would sell out really quickly. And Layer 1 would have been one of those deals if we weren't in such a tough economic environment. But people are using that. So we have, our priority access members. But as we said, it doesn't become that interesting to use that when you don't really have a scarce market. But people do appreciate, and we do have deals that are just for our priority access members. And that is building. That the number of investors that do that has been growing. They tend not to, they stake their tokens, they get priority access to deals. The third is that we gave them discounted trading fees on the secondary market. And over 70% of the investors were paying their fees using BFT to do that, to take advantage of that. The challenge is that that's just not a very liquid market. It's not. It's a niche market. So although the investors that wanted to use it for that purpose are using it, and has very useful utility for them, it doesn't necessarily mean we don't have enough investors to make that a mass appeal interesting token. The other thing we did is we said if people stake more tokens, then the more they invest through the platform, the more token rebates they get. So for every $1,000 they invest through the platform, they get 1,000 BFT bonuses. And we had a lot of people upgrade to that and deposit more tokens and stake more tokens. So what we realized is that when we launched the layer 1 deal, you'll notice that there was a bit of a buying frenzy for the token. Now it's still low volume because it was a couple of $1 million that we were doing there for the layer 1. In a normal market, that would have been a $10 million deal probably for us, on top of what had actually been sold to the external investors outside of the platform. But we noticed that people were buying the token in order to, before they invest in layer 1, so that they could get their rewards and for investing. Why not? Why would you invest in a deal if you knew that you could buy the tokens, and then by having 100,000 tokens, you could get a reward and rebate? Then it's a no-brainer if you know that that is available. And we noticed that led to a bit of a buying frenzy on the external markets. Also, we released the ability for people to buy the tokens on our platform to make it easier. But one of the features that our team came up with, and Marn actually came up with, was that we want to reward people that buy those from an exchange. We can make a user experience that makes it very easy. And so we created the real feature that made it easy to buy BF tokens. This had two benefits. One, it created that easy user experience for BF token, but also it forced us to focus on how we can build a user experience for allowing people to buy digital tokens through our platform, which then really led us to being able to execute on what we want to execute next. So with the BF token, it is, our investors that are utilizing the utility of the token are using it. And it has very high adoption in terms of our investors that regularly invest through the platform. The problem is that if we could come up with 1,000 more initiatives, and we're more than open to doing that. But if you're still dealing with a very, very small audience, a very, very niche audience, all of the innovation in the world is only going to lead to an incremental increase in the utility of that token. So what we need next is to have a mass appeal product, so that then we can use and implement exactly what we learned with a niche product, and therefore it can have much, much bigger impact. And we've seen that with tokens like the Binance token, and that are part of an ecosystem that has very large mass appeal. Then you add a utility token to that, and you have the magic of what a utility token can promise in the future. So our realization was that we've proven that the token utility is useful. Now we need a mass appeal product, and then we can apply the same principles to that. And that's what we're going to be focusing on, rather than trying to find more utility for a niche product that isn't consumed by enough people and will always be niche. Did you have something for us, Fumito?
Yes.
Or is Adam?
Yes, I did.
Jump in? Okay.
Sorry, Adam, did you want to jump in quickly before I?
Yeah, I mean, I think as Simon is saying, really, we've been building up to this point where, in order to really bring in people into crypto and to this industry that we've been in since the beginning, BF token is essentially, it needs to be able to reach out to those people. So it needs a much bigger marketplace than the one which is very much regulated. Imagine that everyone that arrives at Bank to the Future has to be verified. It goes through identity verification, proof of address verification. And then afterwards, if they want to access a deal, they need to be certified. That can mean they need to be a professional investor determined by a UK broker or determined by a US broker. And these are processes that makes access to deals in Bank to the Future not for everyone. But everyone knows that there's something in Bank to the Future that they won't. And that's what we'll explain shortly.
All right, so thank you, Adam. I have a comment here from JC Heiko. I think you should do USDT value of BFT to define access. So as price goes down, people need to buy more. And when price goes up, people can sell some.
Interesting proposition. Certainly something that I think we should put to the team as we start to design. I think I think that the main challenge again that we're trying to do is let's get a mass appeal product that a lot of people want to use, and then we can use all the innovation and the initiatives around the fact that that we're able to utilize this token in order to do that. I think that's a really interesting idea. There's always, with all these things, we need to put the team to think about it, start thinking about the potential for manipulation and how people will react to that, so that we can think through a bit further. But ideas like that is, really useful for us to actually explore and think how we can take this utility token that exists outside the platform and give more utility from within our platform for those that have them.
Cool. So I have a question here, more about the use of BF token on the platform from John H. Regarding BF token, the buy option on the fund section and now has like $60 transaction fee. Why is that? It used to be much lower. Is it because of low liquidity?
Actually, yeah, this is a really interesting point. So this was one of our team members, Aman, his suggestion around that we didn't want people to start, if people want a good user experience and do it all within the platform, then we wanted to be able to offer that for them. But at the same time, we didn't want it to be a place where you're discouraged from using exchanges. So if anyone wants to, purchase at the best rate, then they should go to an exchange. But if someone wanted to actually purchase on the platform, then they're paying for that convenience. Now, those tokens is not something that we really care about charging for. It's about that if we don't want to discourage use on the exchanges, because if someone wants to get the best price, they can go to the exchanges. So we talked about how to add a 10% premium if they wanted to buy it through the platform. And the feature that was already built was having a transaction fee. But really, when we iterate a little bit further, that would be, it's a 10% premium for the convenience of buying through the platform. But if you want to get the best rates, then you can start looking at the exchanges for those that are actually on, have accounts with the exchanges. We didn't want to undercut the exchanges that are listing the token, and then kind of put everything through into a centralized platform. We want to still encourage that to be a platform that is used and traded, and people can buy and sell it on cryptocurrency exchanges, rather than just centralizing the whole ecosystem. So that was one of the initiatives to support the growth of the Bank to the Future token.
Another interesting comment / question from John Lorando. I'm pronouncing it really bad. I'm sorry. Have you considered rewarding viewers with BFT for watching?
Sounds like a great idea that would distract us from our roadmap and be incredibly complicated to achieve. But yeah, that sounds. I think someone needs to create that platform. I don't think we're going to be the ones to create that platform. So I'm sure there are either one of our companies that, or someone that will create such a technology. Then it would be great for Bank to the Future token to be utilized within such an ecosystem. Thanks for the suggestion.
Cool. I think that's it for BFT questions. I mean, obviously we've got the page on the website about rewards and the membership programs. So yeah, that's it for the questions on BFT.
So in summary, we've proven that our investors want to use the Bank to the Future token for its utility. Now, how can we take that learning and apply it to a product that has mass appeal and a much wider market, so that the utility of the token can just be so much more useful to so many more people? BF Wallet. So the original idea with the BF Wallet was that we wanted to create a way for people to be able to hold their own security tokens. And in order to achieve that, it required us actually building a wallet, and it never quite got our full attention. We integrated it with Bitcoin, we integrated it with Ethereum, we did our first security token, which was the lottery.com. We integrated it with Securitize. We did a couple of stable coins. And then we realized one of the protocols would change in the security token market, and it would distract us from what we really wanted to focus on. So BF Wallet, it exists, it works, but we realized that it was really a distraction and part of the security token ecosystem. And what we decided to do, which relates to the next product, is that we think that we were trying to push the security token industry, and that would end up being a niche of a niche. So Bank to the Future is already a niche. The security token market is even a greater niche. So, we were, the reason that we decided that we're going to put these products on hold is because we really want to focus our attention on a mass appeal product. And we think that security tokens on the BF Wallet one day can be a really, really big market. But we think that there's at least 3 years or 2 to 3 years of building that needs to be done by the industry before security tokens can be something that has mass appeal. And so really the BF Wallet we developed it to be part of that security token ecosystem. And because we're putting on hold our developments in the security token ecosystem, which we'll talk about in a bit, BF Wallet really is a bit of a distraction and a pool of resources around what we really want to focus on. I don't know if you had any thoughts on the wallet, Adam.
Yeah, it's completely true that the security token market is that niche in a niche, and we want to get there, but now's not the right time. And these products we've built, they're there, they still exist, they're still maintained. But it's a question of what do you prioritize? And at the moment, it's about absolute attention on onboarding more people into this industry, and how we do that in the Bank to the Future way of doing it. So yeah, BF Wallet, is still there, will be there, but now we're focusing our attention on things that everyone can use.
Yeah. BF identity. So what we realized that one of the key assets we had as an organization, how we doing for time? 15 minutes or so. Did you have a question on BF Wallet, Famida?
Yeah, I did. I guess it was more of a comment from JC Heichel, just saying the BF Wallet didn't make sense to them, as there are lots of wallets out there. So I guess it's a question of what's the competition and what's different that we will be offering in terms of use.
Yeah, great. I mean, this is a really good point, and I really take some of our investors' feedback on this. We're never going to be the best wallet in the world. We've invested our portfolio companies like Exodus and Edge and blockchain.com and many other companies, and Abra and many of the others. They're full-time dedicated to this. We're never going to create a better wallet for them. But the reason we did create it is because we wanted to experiment with security tokens. And that was going to be our niche. That was going to be the next area of focus. But we think it's too early. So now with, BF Wallet is not going to try and compete in the wallet space. We'd rather leave that for our portfolio companies. So that brings us to BF identity. What we realized at Bank to the Future was that one of the key assets we had as an organization is that we spent so much time working on compliance processes with global securities laws, broker onboarding, local onboarding through a UK broker, through a US broker, verification, AML compliance, ongoing monitoring, all the things that we needed to do in order to just be able to open for business. And as we started to look at some of our partners, for example, some of our portfolio companies like Bitfinex and Circle and Kraken and many of them, and Coinbase, when we sold our broker dealer to Coinbase and they decided that they were going to enter into the security token market, we realized that we had this onboarding process that other people could use. But then when, we started to work closer and closer with Adam and the Diacor team, we realized that this again is why don't we take this product and essentially give it to a team that is just dedicated full time on optimizing the experience. And so one of the things that Adam has done is he's been investing in many different regulatory technology companies. And he's also on the board of Blockpass, which is one of his other companies. And so what we've decided to do at Bank to the Future is make a strategic investment in Blockpass and really do that with the goal of aligning the vision of BF Identity with the goals of Blockpass, whose full-time focus is on building the best regulatory technology for people to own their identity. And also to be verified for other cryptocurrencies. It was integrated with the Bitfinex exchange and many other companies. I'll leave this one to Adam to explain. But maybe this is another thing that we could just reallocate our developer resources by aligning our vision with the Blockpass vision, make a strategic investment in the company, and just allow them to do what they do best and us focus on what we do best.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I think having, Bank to the Future, having worked so long in the securities space, and that it's been online securities, having to figure out how to onboard investors, how to verify them, how to certify them, how to ensure compliance when that investor is coming from a different jurisdiction, but not all putting them all into one bucket, but taking a very nuanced approach. All of that work and resource and time and knowledge, that is extremely valuable resource of Bank to the Future. And the BF Identity system is already functioning and well. And we've seen that it's working. It's worked on previous deals that we've done. Some of the ones that you've just seen lately over the past couple of months. The BF Identity system has been powering that to ensure that data that needs to be sent to brokers, regulated brokers, that they need to review data, that it's running on the rails of BF Identity. But there is one core element to the BF Identity aspect, which is identity verification. So it's not looking at whether or not you are suitable to invest in a particular product. That's more about investor accreditation. We're talking about the more traditional identity verification. And at the moment, if you've used the system before, it's an electronic process, etc. But what I have done is I've spent a long time, nearly 3 years, building a system to do identity verification, but to give people their own digital identity. And so if we combine investor certification with digital identity, we end up with a very powerful tool. And by having a specialized team of 50 developers based on, that we've been building this product for a long time, having, worked with many, many companies already, that we see that kind of marriage of investor certification, digital identity verification is going to create a very powerful tool for automatic onboarding. Because what do people want? People want to onboard fast. And if we go into the mass market, we need to be able to do that. It needs to feel seamless, and people need to feel that, they're getting to where they need to be with certainty, and that we have a system that can scale with that as well. So it's about taking all of that knowledge, all of that resource that's been spent in developing investor accreditation, keeping it as is, the rails of BF Identity still doing what it does to share the data with the brokers, but combining that with another powerhouse, which is the Blockpass identity verification system, that together can create a scalable system that can be used for investor accreditation, but also just traditional onboarding, getting people in en masse and allowing them to be able to interact with products that may not need investor certification.
So I have a comment there or a question there.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously in support, I'm seeing that there are some issues around the usability of Veriff. You know, it really depends on whether they're using their mobile phone, what kind of smartphone do they have, and laptops, or if they even don't have a laptop, they might actually have a desktop, and that desktop might actually not have a camera, which means they need to buy an extension for the computer. All these like kind of technical difficulties that some people might face. What is different about Blockpass that Veriff isn't already doing?
Well, Veriff is a very good system, no doubt about it. But what Blockpass is a digital identity. Once you have created it, you can reuse it. So imagine that you're on board with Bank to the Future, but then in 3 months' time, you're asked by Bank to the Future, please provide a proof of address. You're receiving that notification in your email, and then you're going through that process, automatically updating. You're managing your identity. And that's the direction that the world is going in. If you look, countries in the world, they've created digital identity systems. There are about 5 different vendors that supply digital identity systems for the UK government, so that you can file your taxes online using one of those digital vendors. And so Blockpass is in that vein. Veriff is more a verification tool, and Blockpass is an identity system. And what is the difference between Blockpass and other identity systems is that it gives people the choice of where they want to store their data. Do they want to store it in a centralized form, so a very convenient online verification process using the website and a browser, or do they want to store it in a decentralized form, which means on their mobile phone? And a lot of the people who are in the crypto sphere, they actually like to have the choice of where their data is stored. But it's important to give people the convenience. You want the convenience of quick onboarding, you can use the simple web app system. You are a more advanced user and more concerned about controlling your data, download the application, store your data in your phone. It's your identity. And that's the key difference here. But what you'll find is like the onboarding experience, of course, it's analogous with Veriff. It's similar to Veriff. But over time, it gets better and better and better because you're not repeating the same process, because the system knows who you are, and you're proving that it is still you in controlling your digital identity. And that makes a huge difference. To give you an example, I was asked today, to complete KYC for Blockpass. And this would be a new KYC process with another company. I clicked a button and it requested some data, I clicked another button, sent the data, onboarding complete, 5 minutes, received an email, said it was registered. Because I'm already verified. So I'm coming into the system, I get verified once, and then I'm just topping up my verification as we go. And that is a massive difference, but it's the way that the world is going, and we're embracing that by integrating the two systems together.
That sounds amazing for me.
So, yeah, I mean, it's again, if there's a theme in here, we realize that, look, our investors have been complaining about the portfolio section for a long time now, and we know that we've got to do it. We even redesigned it, we even started on it, but then we kept getting dragged off into other directions because we were just trying to achieve too much. And really, since we launched the Bank to the Future token, we were dragged in all these different directions of trying to do things in the security token industry that then led us to building the wallet, that then led us to building the identity solution. And then we realized that we've got literally 5 or 6 areas, and these areas actually require a lot of focus. So you talk about the identity. Well, Blockpass has 50 different, 50 developers that are just thinking about this problem, how to improve it, how to refine it. And yet we're trying to drag off some of our developers from Bank to the Future for that, when really let's just make the investment in Blockpass, so that we believe that there's a huge need to be solved there. Blockpass can do their thing. We can grow with the industry. We have all of the portfolio companies. We can introduce, when Blockpass has the correct solution, we can introduce them to our exchanges, and everyone can just focus on what they do best. And so what we've been thinking about during this time is, what do we do best? And that's really why we're explaining this vision right now, and figuring out what we can focus on. So BF identity, gradually we'll look to align our roadmap with the Blockpass team, and they can do that a lot better than we can do that, is the goal. The final one I wanted to go through is, prior to the health crisis, our focus and our new thing was obviously BFX, which was our security token exchange. The big realization here is that when we got into the lockdown, and we realized that, okay, the economy is going into recession, potentially depression, and what is the market going to want? Well, I frequently give content on my YouTube channel, Simon Dixon, and I focus just on, the economy, the financial side, the crypto markets, and I was being bombarded throughout the lockdown by people that were like, okay, Simon, I'm finally ready to use Bitcoin. How do I get in? And then, my friends that were like, well, I'm a bit concerned about my real estate portfolio. I exited some of it. What am I going to do with that? And they were like, well, I'm ready to make a bet on Bitcoin. And they were like, well, how do I do that? So I said, well, why don't you go over and sign up to Coinbase? And they were like, well, okay, well, I did that. They did their verification, and then they realized they could only send like £1,000 or £3,000. You're like, well, I want to send over 150 grand. How am I going to do that? And then they were like, well, I'm not sure if I trust that. I haven't, and all these questions started to come through. And we started to realize that actually the security token market, we built that platform. We can document that and we can pick it up later. But really, it's going to be another niche within a niche. So we've already created a niche, and security tokens are even more niche than doing it in a really easy way, like we have through Bank to the Future. And so rather than focusing on a niche within a niche, let's wait for another bull market. Let's really figure out what our mass appeal product is. And then, so we're going to shelf that and really reallocate our resources to focusing on what is, that mass appeal product. And so that really drove us to the closing thoughts, where we're happy to take any questions on that as well. But this was the original presentation. But really, it drove us back to what was Bank to the Future actually created for. Well, our original vision was to create a non-fractional reserve bank. I was a monetary reformer before I was a Bitcoiner. And the whole reason behind the Bank to the Future brand was when Bliss Dixon and myself got together, we were bored of speaking at universities and speaking to politicians about the Ponzi scheme of banking, and recognized that actually, non-fractional reserve banking was what the original brand was created for. We got distracted because we found, that got us invited to the first Bitcoin conference. And then when we saw Bitcoin, we saw infrastructure that was essentially building what we saw at the time. Our understanding of Bitcoin was infrastructure to build a non-fractional reserve bank. The problem was that the industry was so small, no one was using Bitcoin, but we really wanted to be a part of that industry. So we pivoted our business, focused on what's the difference we can make in securities. We made some real trailblazing, changes in regulations that led to changing regulations around the world. And, and that took our focus really for a decade, and brought us to where we are today. So now the industry, actually, through all the companies that we've invested in, has a very buoyant ecosystem now. You can now take your crypto, you can collateralize it, you can lend it. Financial market, some of the products are very sophisticated. Institutional investors are looking to build financial products to onboard people into the industry. You know, the industry has become very, very sophisticated. And in fact, through regulatory innovation and technical innovation, we realize that everything we need to achieve what we originally set out to achieve actually already exists. And what do we have at Bank to the Future? Well, we have the longest standing company in the industry. And we also have, you know, investments in the entire ecosystem. So this brings us to what can we do to put together a mass appeal product? Well, the first thing is let's take all those products, let's put them in their rightful box. Let's shelf BFX, let's shelf BF Wallet. Let's take the BF identity, let's put that to another team that can really focus on doing a superb job at that. And then what are we left with? Well, we're left with our primary markets, we're left with our secondary markets, and we're also left with the vision that we originally set out to achieve, which is how can we allow people to invest in the growth of this industry in a really, really easy way. We're not quite ready to reveal the full vision of exactly how we're going to do that. But in future episodes of Bank to the Future Live, we're going to be revealing step by step exactly how we're going to do that. It's going to start with an educational product, which you're going to be seeing more and more about, helping people understand how to invest in this industry in a really, really responsible way, combining the lessons from decades and decades of traditional markets with the innovation of the crypto markets, and really build what we found out many people are contacting us to want to do because they're scared about what's happening in their traditional investments and the traditional markets. So they're now looking at this industry, but it's a minefield of scams and being taken in the wrong direction, signing up to an exchange, trying to figure out what's the difference between Bitcoin and all these other things, and then trying to invest in IEOs and ICOs and whatever the next shiny object is. And then you're told that you need to lend some and you can get some collateral, and just this, you're signing up to all these different accounts. You know, this just minefield. And then you've got to try and avoid the scammers, and just really, really an absolute horrific nightmare for someone that's trying to get into this industry. But we think we can do it in a really, really easy fashion and release something that is available for the masses, and also those that, you know, so by using like some of the Blockpass technology, using additional licenses that we're applying for right now, we think we can package this together into a unique offering that's never been offered before by some of the other portfolio companies that are focusing on their niches. So I know this is a little bit cryptic, sorry, pardon the pun. But over the coming weeks, you're going to see us gradually introducing our educational products, and then products that we think can help onboard, you know, the next million odd people that want to get into this industry as a result of the current economic environment. We're really, really excited about, you know, attempting to build Bank to the Future into the next unicorn, and doing it in our unique way based upon the licenses that we've achieved, or our portfolio companies, the partnerships that we've achieved, the trust that we've built over the years. And then what we said, we can then take our products like the primary markets, the secondary markets, and the Bank to the Future token, and we can inject those into a mass appeal product. And that's really what you're going to see from us and what we're going to be announcing. I'm sorry I can't reveal the full details, but maybe we got some questions, and also Adam, maybe you want to add your spin around what we've been working with your team, and how we can put this new vision together without revealing too much. I think you're on mute, Adam.
Yeah.
Sorry. Ultimately, what really matters in crypto is who you can trust. And that's quite ironic, because crypto is really about trustlessness. The fact that I can transact Bitcoin across borders and it's the blockchain that settles it rather than a bank. It's ironic that a system that's trustless requires a lot of trust. But being in the industry for so long, which is what Bank to the Future can say it has been, and there aren't many other companies that can say that, and to have been there but also to have succeeded for so long, that is credibility, that's kudos. for this industry. And there's so much more that Bank to the Future can offer, not only for accredited investors, but for the wider public in terms of bringing them into crypto, bringing them safely, compliantly into crypto, giving them a long-term vision of what this opportunity is. And we just look forward to embracing more people into the Bank to the Future family and seeing that they have a great journey like we have had from the very beginning in crypto. So, you know, that is very much about that. And these details that will come out over the next coming weeks, you'll love hearing about it. It's going to be very exciting to see that, you know, you can come out with a product now that's taken 10 years to build. You have to do the foundation, you have to do the groundwork, you have to see it, the ups and the downs, you have to be through all of those different changes, which, you know, a company like Fidelity that comes into the market hasn't gone through all of that, ups and downs, and hasn't seen the very beginning. And so, you know, you're there with the people that have been there since the beginning. And so we're very much wanting to reach out and bring in more people into this industry, which is going to benefit you as a Bank to the Future investor, a BFT holder, because it's not only going to be accredited investors that are interested, but it will be everyone.
Yeah. You know, we started out to try and create a non-fractional reserve bank. We ended up building a securities business, and that drove us into just dealing with the top 1% sophisticated professional accredited investors. And then suddenly we realized, as a thanks to this lockdown, that actually we really missed what we originally set out to do. And now it's time to actually build a product that actually can make a difference to a significantly greater number of people, rather than just helping the top 1% become richer. And you know, we've realized that we need to get back to the roots of what we wanted to do. And we can do that in a number of ways. We've got unique education, and we're building unique products, and we've got a regulatory structure in order to do that with the right level of innovation and the team that can do that, and all the partnerships across all the companies that we've become shareholders is thanks to our investors. So maybe Famida, you got something you want to say there, or question?
Yeah, actually, so it's really interesting. I love you both having a drink at the same time. I finished my cup of tea already. Yeah, so around about the time when we launched Kraken, I mean, we've talked about this before, that there are those investors that see a quick win and jump in. Yes, they may be wealthy, or they have extra money lying around and they just want to get in. And so they get in, they qualify, they pass the verification test and certify. But what happens afterwards is, because it was a quick win in their minds, the type of support that we have to give these type of investors is quite full on, because actually they didn't read the terms. Actually, they didn't understand what they were investing in and what type of investment it was, or what the implications are for the future. So do you think this product that you're building is going to assist in that sense as well?
Yeah, this is one of the reasons why education became such an important factor for us. So, you know, we go to great lengths. We make people take a quiz before they can invest in any product. They have to demonstrate that they understand it. We really don't try and bury these things in terms and conditions to the expense and pain of our company. We really want people to understand what they're investing in. But when you're dealing with such innovation, it's challenging, especially coupled with the fact that a bunch of people got incredibly wealthy by investing in either Bitcoin or Ethereum or ICOs or whatever the trend was. And they're used to a certain product, and they never went through stocks, bonds, commodities, or any of those things, because they just came straight into this market and they happened to get these ginormous wins. But we know the unique experience that we have is from dealing with 85,000 investors from the very beginning to where we are today. We know the ones that became incredibly wealthy, and we know what they did differently from the ones that were there right at the beginning and are not wealthy. And that is simply, you know, we can teach without having to give financial advice. We've got real intelligence around how people can think about investing in this industry. And not only once we educate people on how they can do things differently and think differently in order to bring, build and protect their long-term wealth in this industry, we can then build products that actually fulfill in a very easy user experience what they've actually learned. And that's really our goal. We want to educate people so that they understand things. And then we want to build products that make it really, really easy to execute without having to create 16 different accounts across 16 different companies. And really, this is where Blockpass and the BF identity becomes really important to us, because we don't want everyone to have to do that 1,000 times. And we've got unique experience in terms of what products require certification, what products just require verification, what products do you need a broker in order to do it, and how can we just make that absolute ginormous mess and put it into a real simple user experience. And that's kind of the aha moment for us. And that's, again, cryptic, because we're not giving you everything. We can't reveal everything in this stage, but that's what we've been spending the last months doing. And we think we got an answer, and we think we'd like to share this journey of turning Bank to the Future, where it is, into, one of the unicorns itself. We invested in many unicorns, but we'd also like to try and create a unicorn here. And we'd like to take everyone that's been involved in the ecosystem with us on that journey as well.
I have a question here from the one. The real question is, how are you going to capture the hearts of mainstream people? Because 99.99% of the population doesn't care about Bitcoin and see it as a Ponzi scheme.
Well, I think the traditional financial market is doing a really good job of educating people of why they need to be this. So Bitcoin has been the highest performing asset class for 10 of the last 12 years. And our crypto industry, when governments are doing excessive money printing, quantitative easing, then people start to ask the question of how do you achieve hard money? When people start to get financially ruined in their traditional products, or cash becomes illegal, or the pension schemes actually turn out to be, not everything, or they retire at the wrong time, then I don't see our job as needing to educate many people, because the traditional financial system is doing a fantastic job in driving people to want to care about this industry. All we need to do is make the products that are easy. And I see every single time, I saw it in every time we have these big events, you end up with pockets of new onboarding and people just giving up because it's too hard. So really, the opportunity is in making that easy, because I think more and more people do care, but it's just too hard to actually get in. And what are we doing? We're all selling products to the same converted industry, when really the big opportunity is the traditional financial system giving people more and more reasons to understand why they need to be a part of an alternative, and then having a really easy experience that is similar to what they're used to in the traditional world. If you're asking people to learn a new thing, understand a new thing, and then completely change their behaviors, that's one of the challenges that our industry has faced. So, and that's where we're thinking in terms of bringing in the next million, 2 million, 3 million, 4 million, 10 million, billion people into the market.
I think there's like a lot of I know we got to end soon, but like I feel like there are quite a few people that are quite controlling about or like protective over Bitcoin, or like their understanding and investments in cryptocurrency, or just like the whole industry itself. And so I guess like some people just don't want to share knowledge as well. There are those types of people, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have anything to comment on that. Yeah.
Well, I think as I said, I'm jumping off my chair to try and share some of the things that we know that we're going to be bringing out in the coming months. But as I said, we've got very unique experience around being a shareholder in every exchange, having invested in all of the different waves of growth in the industry. having been here from the very beginning when it was just Bitcoin and a bunch of people trying to take on the banks, and seeing so many people become so wealthy, and then a bunch of people lose all their money by over trading, doing over leverage. And we think that we have a unique perspective that we can share with more and more people. And then we can build products that make that easy. And that's really our focus, and what we want to bring. Did you want to add anything, Adam?
Yeah, I mean, the way I think about it is going back to the beginning of this discussion. It's, if you're coming into this industry, you don't really know where to start. So, Bank to the Future has spent 10 years bringing together all of the best companies in the industry, them raising finance under the same corporate structure, etc. And it just gives an immediate snapshot to bring you right up to date of what's happened in the past 10 years of crypto. And I think that's a very unique position, as I was saying in the beginning of this. But remember that people who are coming in, they need to understand what has happened in the past to bring them to where they are today. And the Bitcoin story is as real as it is today as it was 10 years ago. The main difference about the Bitcoin story is you don't have to explain it again, because in the beginning, in like 10 years ago, there was the financial crisis, and then someone came along and said, hey, there's this fancy thing, there's this new thing called Bitcoin, and this will be a great alternative to the financial system, this financial system that caused this financial crisis, etc. In other words, the opposite of it, or an alternative to it. But when you introduce this idea, this technology at that stage, it's going to take a long time for people to actually even know what it is. And 10 years, frankly speaking, has been a long enough time for people to grasp or have certain ideas of what Bitcoin is, and even to get involved somewhat in it. And this next round, this next financial crisis that we seem to be moving in towards, is the perfect opportunity where they spent 10 years hearing about Bitcoin and seeing actually it is relevant to think about Bitcoin. It is relevant to think, well, I can't completely rely upon the government, and I can't completely rely upon the stock market, to provide me means until my retirement. Then I need to think about what other alternative industries there are that can give me that, maybe insurance on the traditional system itself. So, the idea is mature enough now to be accepted by many people around the world, and for those people around the world to have the ability to onboard. And what's interesting is 10 years ago, you're trying to get someone into Bitcoin, they're going to need a PhD in maths to understand how on earth to operate a wallet. Now there's been so much advance in terms of the infrastructure that it's going to be a lot easier, but it's still not easy enough. And so you need companies like Bank to the Future that understand the perspective of everyone that should get into Bitcoin. So Bank to the Future is for everyone, not just a few people, a few accredited investors, but for everyone. And to have been there from the beginning, have the credibility, and to be able to bring that to everyone. That is a very unique position to be in right now. And it's the perfect moment to do it because of that 10-year cycle and because of this new financial crisis that we seem to be moving towards.
Yeah, and I just want to be, clear, because I can hear the compliance team probably shouting in the background. We're we need to make product development, we need to make regulatory development, and all of those things are in motion. We need to build new products that are available for the masses, and we need to get the regulatory requirements met as well. It doesn't mean we can take our existing, products, because they are for a very specific reason, in order to remain compliant, restricted to a certain set of investors. But now we're thinking about what can we bring, and that's where we're excited about the next wave of products that we want to bring to market. Okay, should we wrap it up there? I think we went over the.
Yeah,
wow,
I think we should. Yeah.
Okay, well, thanks for anyone that endured through that. We just wanted to really give that update because as a team, we've been going through a bit of a radical transformation during this time. We've been utilizing this time to actually really think and get back to the roots of what we're doing. So anyone that's got any feedback, do share in the comments. You can always reach out to our support team and let us know what you're thinking. And we'll continue to do this. And we'll. That's going to do it for this episode of, I think we're 59 now, of Bank to the Future Live. So thanks for joining us, Adam. Thanks for Mida, and thanks for everyone and all of our investors. Bye bye.